Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Victor Newman has goggled down adversaries, governments, and indeed death itself, but this time the trouble ending in on him is unlike anything he's faced before, because it's coming from a ruthless alliance that knows his every weakness, and they're determined to use them all to eventually drag the Goliath of Genoa City into a captivity cell. Jack Abbott, long Victor's most particular and continuing rival, is no longer playing defense or trading brickbats across the boardroom table. This time, Jack is applying calculated, grim pressure from every possible angle, and he is acting alone. Phyllis Summers and Kane Ashby have aligned themselves exactly with Jack, forming what may be the most dangerous anti-Newman coalition in times, and their thing is chillingly simple: break Victor fairly, intimately, and permanently. Jack knows Victor's topmost strength has always been his capability to blackjack, to outmaneuver, to make problems vanish before they ever reach a courtroom. So Jack does the one thing Victor no way expects: he refuses to blink. Rather of secret deals or commercial sabotage, Jack starts pushing everything into the light, encouraging examinations, cooperating with authorities, and still feeding information that links Victor to a web of illegal pushes that stretches back times. What makes this move devastating is that Jack doesn't exaggerate or fabricate. He simply allows the verity to face, piece by piece, knowing Victor's history is riddled with enough Argentine-area opinions and outright crimes to bury him under the weight of his own heritage. Phyllis, fueled by a poisonous blend of revenge and exculpation, becomes the wild card Jack needs to keep Victor off balance. She knows Victor's playbook privately: the intimidation tactics, the pitfalls disguised as offers, the way he weaponizes fear, and she uses that knowledge to anticipate his moves before he makes them. Phyllis leaks just enough to keep pressure mounting without tilting Victor off to the full compass of what's coming, icing that every step he takes to cover himself only tightens the mesh. Kane Ashby, meanwhile, brings the cold wave, strategic edge of someone who understands both commercial warfare and particular treason. Kane doesn't just want Victor exposed, he wants him lowered, stripped of the myth that he's untouchable. Kane works behind the scenes to connect fiscal irregularities, shell companies, and back-channel deals directly to Victor, presenting a paper trail so clean and ruinous that indeed Victor's most pious legal bulldogs struggle to punch holes in it. As Jack's pressure intensifies, Victor finds himself doing commodity that terrifies him further than any adversary ever has, replying rather of controlling. Every attempt to shut Jack down backfires, every trouble only strengthens Jack's resoluteness, and for the first time, Victor senses that the power dynamic has shifted. Nikki sees it before anyone differently does. She watches the cracks form in Victor's armor as the weight of implicit captivity time becomes real, not theoretical. This isn't a brief stint in county lockup or an emblematic poke on the wrist. This is serious exposure that could lead to times behind bars, a public trial, and the complete destruction of the Newman heritage. Nikki pleads with Victor to stand down, to consider an agreement, to suppose about their family, but Victor's pride wouldn't allow him to surrender, indeed as the walls near in. Jack, inspired by Victor's visible unraveling, escalates the pressure, making it clear that this isn't about winning Newman Enterprises or settling old scores presently. This is about responsibility. Jack wants Victor to face consequences for decades of manipulation, compulsion, and contributory damage, and he's willing to burn islands, immolation alliances, and risk everything to see it through. Phyllis takes a particular pleasure in watching Victor fidget, seeing in his despair the same fear she's felt when important men tried to abolish her. She refuses to back down, indeed when Victor corners her with veiled pitfalls, because she knows commodity Victor doesn't want to admit. He needs her silence far further than she needs his blessing. Kane, seeing blood in the water, pushes indeed harder, advising Victor that the legal system doesn't bend the way it used to and that his name no longer guarantees impunity. Victor's children begin to feel the temblors as well. Victoria worries about the future of Newman Enterprises if her father is criminated. Adam calculates how far he should part himself before being dragged down, and Nick struggles with the idea that his father's reign might eventually be ending not with a triumphant palm, but with a captivity judgment. The demotion alone is unsupportable for Victor, the study of being attended and bined, mugged, judged, and confined, and it drives him to make decreasingly reckless opinions that only strengthen Jack's case. Each hopeless move becomes another slip-up in the wall, closing him off from escape. Jack's final power play comes when he makes it clear that he wouldn't settle for anything lower than full responsibility, indeed if Victor offers concessions, plutocrat, or control. This isn't influence for concession, it's a preamble. As processes impend and prosecutors circle, Victor is forced to defy the unbelievable question: can indeed he outfight the law when the people who know him stylish are determined to see him fall? The alliance between Jack, Phyllis, and Cain proves surprisingly unbreakable, united by a participated belief that Genoa City has lived under Victor Newman's shadow long enough. And as the pressure reaches its breaking point, Victor stands on the edge of a future he no way imagined, one where power, fear, and plutocrat may not be enough to save him from a captivity cell, and the legend of Victor Newman may eventually be rewritten as an exemplary tale rather of a palm story. Victor Newman no way imagined that the walls closing in on him would feel this suffocating, this final, because every instinct he has riots that power should be enough to save him, yet power is exactly what's betraying him now. As Jack Abbott's pressure crusade intensifies, it becomes severely clear that this is no longer a private war between two elephants but a public reckoning fueled by people who formerly stressed Victor and now refuse to presently. Jack moves with nipping perfection, using every legal channel available, cooperating openly with investigators and icing that Victor's name is spoken in hushed but grim tones inside courtrooms and law services across Genoa City. What makes this phase of the battle especially dangerous is that Jack no longer needs to provoke Victor into miscalculations, Victor is making them on his own. Each attempt to blackjack substantiations, each quiet lucre arranged through interposers, each late-night call meant to fix a problem only adds further energy to the growing case against him. Phyllis Summers watches this unraveling with razor-sharp focus, stepping into her part as both strategist and kindler, designedly baiting Victor into overplaying his hand. She knows his pride wouldn't allow him to retreat, and she exploits that weakness mercilessly, nudging exchanges toward motifs she knows will push him into issuing pitfalls that can laterally be corroborated. Cain Ashby, meanwhile, operates like an cutthroat in a acclimatized suit, collecting timelines, fiscal documents, and bigwig evidence into a ruinous narrative that paints Victor not as a Ms. New mogul, but as a man who believed himself above the law for far too long. Cain's involvement terrifies Victor more than he lets on, because Cain understands the Argentine spaces where commercial ambition bleeds into felonious liability, and he knows exactly how to frame Victor's opinions as purposeful, calculated, and illegal. As the substantiation mounts, whispers of formal charges ripple through Genoa City, transferring shockwaves through Newman Enterprises and kindling fear among directors who suddenly sweat getting contributory damage. Victoria scrambles to stabilize the company, torn between fidelity to her father and the grim reality that his conduct could sink everything he erected. Adam, ever the survivor, begins still separating himself, importing weather-cutting ties now might save him laterally, while Nick wrestles with the emotional desolation of watching his father possessed like this, doubtful whether to defend the man who raised him or accept that justice may eventually be catching up. Nikki, trapped in the middle of it all, becomes Victor's last emotional anchor, but indeed her unwavering devotion can't shield him from the verity gaping him in the face this time, there may be no escape. Jack escalates again, delivering a ruinous blow when he signals that he's set to swear if necessary, a move that shocks the entire city. For decades, Jack and Victor have fought dirty behind unrestricted doors, but Jack stepping into the light, willing to put himself on the record, signals that he's done playing games. Phyllis supports the move with calculated leaks that ensure the media is circling, turning Victor's legal jeopardy into a public spectacle that erodes his capability to control the narrative. Cain presses harder still, advising Victor in a rare, blunt battle that the prosecutors aren't interested in deals that save his quality, they want a conviction, and they're nearer than Victor thinks. The pressure fractures Victor's inner circle, exposing who's truly pious and who's formerly planning for a post-Victor world. Former abettors grow distant, calls go unanswered, and doors that formerly flew open now close still in his face. Despair begins to creep into Victor's voice during late-night strategy sessions with his attorneys, and for the first time, the word captivity is spoken not as a academic trouble, but as a possible outgrowth they must prepare for. Jack, seeing Victor's decaying resoluteness, refuses every preamble for concession, making it clear that plutocrat, power, or commercial concessions would end by Victor his freedom. This is end concession its judgment. Phyllis relishes the shift, seeing in Victor's fear a confirmation of every time she was dismissed, hovered, or manipulated by men who allowed they were untouchable. Kane stays chastened, reminding Jack and Phyllis that emotional satisfaction must end their ideal, indeed as the stakes climb advanced with each passing day. When processes eventually land, they hit like a blast, attesting Victor's worst fears and transferring Nikki into a curl of fear and heartache. Cameras gather, rumors explode, and Genoa City braces for a reproach unlike anything it's seen ahead. Victor puts on his bold face in public, issuing recalcitrant statements and projecting confidence, but behind unrestricted doors, the strain is inarguable. He switches out at his children, berates his legal platoon, and makes one final, reckless attempt to strong-arm the situation, a move that Jack, Phyllis, and Kane are ready for, establishing every step and turning it into yet another nail in the pall of Victor's defense. As the reality of implicit incarceration looms, Victor is forced to defy the heritage he's erected and the possibility that it may end not with applause, but with a captivity door slamming shut behind him. Jack stands firm, unvarying, convinced that Genoa City deserves to see its most important man eventually answer for his conduct. Phyllis and Kane remain locked at his side, united by purpose and fueled by the belief that this moment could review the balance of power ever. And as the preamble toward charge accelerates, one thing becomes terrifyingly clear. Victor Newman is running out of moves, and for the first time in his life, sheer force of will may not be enough to keep him out of captivity. Victor Newman, the insuperable headman of Genoa City, finds himself facing a reality more intimidating than any commercial treason or physical trouble he has ever encountered, the veritably real possibility of captivity, a script so alien to him that indeed the study makes his blood run cold wave and his mind race frenetically for escape routes that simply don't live. Jack Abbott has been regular, patient, and terrifyingly strategic, applying pressure in ways Victor has no way endured, exploiting not only the legal system but also Victor's particular vulnerabilities. And this time, Jack is end alone. Phyllis Summers, fueled by decades of resentment, treason, and a hopeless desire to see justice done, has aligned herself completely with Jack, using her knowledge of Victor's patterns, sins, and pride to push him into miscalculations that could be proved, witnessed, and latterly used against him in court. Kane Ashby, the calm, calculating presence in the alliance, methodically pieces together Victor's commercial moves, past shady deals, and fiscal mistakes, icing that any protective initiative Victor tries will only consolidate the trap. Every day for Victor becomes a minefield. Every discussion, every meeting, every call has the implicit to be exploited, recorded, or scanned, and the paranoia gnaws at him relentlessly, eroding the confidence that formerly made him feel insurmountable. The walls at Newman Enterprises, once a symbol of his control and power, now feel like a pen, echoing with whispers of charges, and the possibility that the conglomerate he erected could collapse under legal scrutiny, public embarrassment, and the implacable pressure from those he formerly considered adversaries who could no way truly harm him. Nikki watches from the sidelines with heartache and fear, knowing that the man she has loved through every business achievement, family treason, and near-death experience is suddenly vulnerable in a way that she has no way seen, and though she tries to counsel him, to remind him of the strength and adaptability he has always displayed, Victor's pride and fury make him resistant to any advice that suggests concession or submission. Jack, seeing this moment of internal fracture, escalates his crusade with surgical perfection, orchestrating public appearances, private meetings, and legal pushes that leave Victor decreasingly exposed and insulated. Every attempt Victor makes to manipulate, blackjack, or outsmart his adversaries is met with countermeasures that anticipate his strategies before he indeed has the chance to apply them, leaving him stunned at the effectiveness and collaboration of the Jack-Phyllis-Kane alliance. Phyllis, ever the demagogue, inserts herself into the most critical moments, offering veiled pitfalls disguised as accommodations, allowing Victor to overreach in his attempts to silence her, and capturing evidence that can be abused against him. Kane's donation is clinical and regular, collecting documents, cross-referencing dates, and icing that the trail of substantiation paints Victor not as a Ms. New mogul but as a man who has constantly skirted legitimacy, manipulated abettors, and made adversaries through a continuance of aggressive, ruthless opinions. The combination of legal exposure, emotional manipulation, and strategic attacks leaves Victor unmoored, and for the first time in decades, he begins to make crimes that indeed he cannot completely contain. Processes arrive like lightning bolts, stunning Victor, Nikki, and their patriots. The media senses vulnerability, circling with cameras and whispers of reproach, and the megacity of Genoa City buzzes with enterprise, rumors, and expectation. Victoria tries to hold the company together, balancing fidelity to her father with the inarguable need to cover Newman Enterprises from collapse, while Adam begins precisely calculating his own moves, measuring the fallout and deciding how stylish to isolate himself from the disaster that may soon gulf the family. Nick struggles with a blend of rage, fear, and helplessness, trying to navigate his part as a son watching a father possessed by a triad of adversaries who know him privately and won't yield. Victor switches out in private, berating his attorneys, snapping at his children, and making hopeless preludes to abettors who have grown cautious of his invincibility, but every trouble to recapture control seems to feed the instigation of Jack, Phyllis, and Kane, who remain loyal, coordinated, and ruthless in pursuit of their ideal. The cerebral risk on Victor is immense. Insomniac nights, pulsing hands, and a constant sense of surveillance make him question not only the fidelity of those around him but also his own judgment, which has always been his most potent armament. Jack refuses to accept any offer that could dwindle the graveness of the consequences Victor faces, making it clear that plutocrat, control, or commercial concessions wouldn't be sufficient to cover him. This isn't about concession, but responsibility, and Jack is prepared to see the law take its course no matter how high the stakes or how particular the battle becomes. Phyllis, seeing the power shift, is inspired, no longer happy with subtle palms or quiet influence. She wants Victor lowered, visibly shaken, and forced to defy the consequences of a continuance of opinions that favored power over morality. Kane remains the cool, calculating presence, reminding both Jack and Phyllis that emotion mustn't intrude with strategy, and that every leak, every proved trouble, every precisely timed initiative must serve the wind-up Victor behind bars. As the charge nears, Victor's inner circle fractures further. Former abettors begin to part themselves, seeing that his invulnerability may be gone, and that association could be poisonous. Calls go unanswered, deals that were formerly fluently executed now slip through legal loopholes, and doors that used to open at his command now remain unrestricted. Victor's fabulous confidence begins to crack under the weight of reality, replaced by a growing despair that drives him to illogical, visible, and fairly dangerous actions that Jack, Phyllis, and Kane observe and validate with perfection. Every discussion Victor believes is private is potentially a legal landmine, every movement is scanned, and the pressure ratchets advanced as prosecutors gain access to substantiation precisely cultivated by his adversaries. The emotional stakes emulsion. Nikki is fearful for her hubby and the family heritage, Victoria is scarified of the commercial implosion that could follow, Adam considers tone preservation, Nick is caught between domestic fidelity and moral justice, and indeed Victor himself begins to regard a future he no way imagined, one in which his power, plutocrat, and character may not be enough to save him. The specter of captivity is no longer academic, it's palpable, brewing, and monstrous, and Victor is forced to defy a verity he has long ignored, that for all his cunning, ruthlessness, and dominance, he may eventually have met adversaries who are smarter, more patient, and more grim than he is. Jack's ultimate initiative, signaling amenability to swear, orchestrating media exposure, and icing that Victor cannot negotiate his way out, pushes Victor to the point. Phyllis steps into the breach, her every action calculated to destabilize Victor, testing the limits of his pride, tolerance, and control, while Kane quietly compiles substantiation, icing that the legal frame is watertight and that there's no way for Victor to maneuver around it. As processes arrive, cameras flash, and Genoa City whispers grow louder, Victor's despair becomes palpable. The Goliath who formerly sounded untouchable now finds himself on the cliff of demotion, legal jeopardy, and implicit incarceration. In private competitions, Victor's wrathfulness and fear come more visible, and every hopeless attempt to recapture control only strengthens the case against him, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. Nikki tries to console him, to remind him of the family they erected, but indeed her love cannot abolish the reality of the situation. The combined sweats of Jack, Phyllis, and Kane have created a pressure cooker that indeed Victor cannot escape. The megacity watches, the media speculates, and Newman Enterprises teeters on the edge of chaos as Victor struggles to maintain the vision of control while the mesh tightens around him. Jack, loyal and strategic, refuses to yield, making it clear that his charge isn't complete until Victor faces full responsibility. Phyllis, delighting the shift in power, ensures that Victor's every move is proved and exploited, while Kane continues to orchestrate the legal strategy with cold, precise effectiveness. Together, the triad has orchestrated a perfect storm, a coordinated siege on Victor's heritage, character, and freedom, and the man who has long controlled Genoa City's fate now finds himself helpless against the grim pressure of adversaries who know him better than he knows himself. Victor's fabulous confidence, formerly imperturbable, begins to deteriorate. His fabulous fearlessness gives way to sweat, query, and a creeping consummation that for all his cunning, he may eventually